You're staring at a structure so massive, so perfectly engineered, that modern architects say we couldn't build it today. Not because we lack the technology, because we lack the will. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains 2.3 million stone blocks. Some weigh 80 tons. And they were placed with a margin of error smaller than a human fingernail. How? Here's what your history teacher never told you. For over a century, the official story was simple: slaves built the pyramids. Beaten, starved, broken men dragging rocks under the Egyptian sun. A monument to cruelty. But then archaeologists started digging in the wrong place. And what they found didn't just challenge that story. It destroyed it. Because underneath the sand, right next to the pyramids, they found something nobody expected. A city. A fully functioning, highly organized city with bakeries, breweries, hospitals, and administrative buildings. A city built for the workers. Not a prison camp. A civilization. And once you understand why that city existed, once you understand the system behind it, you'll never look at the pyramids the same way again. Because the pyramids weren't just tombs. They were the engine that ran an entire empire. Let's go back to 2560 BC. Ancient Egypt. The Old Kingdom. Pharaoh Khufu has just taken the throne. He's young, ambitious, and he has a problem. Egypt is powerful, but barely. The country is a thin strip of fertile land surrounded by desert. Every year, the Nile floods. And for 3 or 4 months, hundreds of thousands of farmers can't work their fields. They're sitting idle. Eating. Waiting. That's dangerous. Idle men form opinions. Idle men cause uprisings. Idle men forget who their god king is. Khufu's advisors understood something that modern governments still use today: if you want to control the population, give them a purpose. So they built the pyramids. Not primarily as tombs. As a state employment program. A psychological control system. A monument to power so overwhelming that every Egyptian who saw it understood resistance is pointless. But here's where it gets sophisticated. Because the system they built to construct these pyramids was so advanced, so ruthlessly efficient, that it kept 20,000 to 30,000 workers in perfect coordination for 20 straight years. Without computers. Without steel. Without cranes. Let's break down exactly how they did it. The workers were not slaves. We know this because of the graffiti. Inside hidden chambers above the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, archaeologists found inscriptions left by the work gangs themselves. They had names. Boastful, proud names, like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure. You don't give your slave labor gang a nickname. You give your team a nickname. These men were organized into gangs of roughly 2,000. Each gang was divided into 5 philes, a Greek word meaning tribe, of around 200 men each. Each phyle had a foreman. Each gang had a supervisor. Above them, master builders. Above them, the royal architects. It was a military hierarchy. Clear chain of command. No confusion about who gave orders. And here's the genius part: they rotated. Workers didn't serve for life. Most served for 3-month stints. Like a draft. You did your time, you went home, you told everyone in your village that you built something for a god. And your village believed it. Because you had. This rotation did something psychologically brilliant. It spread the ownership of the pyramid across the entire country. Hundreds of thousands of Egyptians, over multiple generations, had a personal connection to that structure. Their father worked on it. Their uncle. Their neighbor. The pyramid wasn't the pharaoh's achievement. It was theirs. Now let's talk about the logistics. Because this is where it gets almost incomprehensible. At peak construction, workers were moving an estimated 12,000 pounds of stone every single minute of the workday. Think about that number. Not per hour. Per minute. To achieve that, the Egyptians developed a supply chain of staggering complexity. The limestone for the pyramid's core came from a quarry right next to the construction site. We found it. But the fine white limestone used for the outer casing? That came from Tura, a quarry on the opposite bank of the Nile, 13 kilometers away. The granite used for the burial chamber came from Aswan, 800 kilometers upstream. They moved 80-ton granite blocks 800 kilometers along the Nile on wooden barges through unpredictable currents and then somehow raised them 60 meters into the air to place them inside the pyramid with millimeter precision. The harbor they used was discovered in 2013. The papyrus records found there, the world's oldest papyri, describe the logistics in obsessive detail. A man named Mir kept a daily work journal. Every trip, every block, every delivery. It reads like a modern project manager's spreadsheet, except it's written on 4,500-year-old paper, about building a wonder of the ancient world. Here's something most documentaries skip over, the ramp problem. To get those stones up the pyramid, you need a ramp. But a ramp long enough to reach the top of a 146-meter structure, at a gentle enough angle for men to haul blocks, would need to be over a mile long. And it would contain more material than the pyramid itself. That doesn't make sense. So for decades, Egyptologists argued. Straight ramp? Spiral ramp? Combination? Then in 2017, inside an ancient alabaster quarry at Hatnub, they found something extraordinary. A slope tunnel system with wooden post holes on either side. The design revealed a technique nobody had considered. An internal spiral ramp. Evidence suggests they built a ramp inside the pyramid as it rose, using a corkscrew of internal tunnels and notches at each corner, where workers could use a rope and post lever system to haul blocks up, corner by corner, like a giant screw mechanism. It was elegant. It was efficient. It left almost no waste material. And it explains why, to this day, certain internal chambers in the Great Pyramid remain unmapped. Because the tunnels might still be in there. Now let's talk about the people. Forget the stones for a moment. Forget the engineering. Imagine you're a 22-year-old farmer from the Nile Delta. You've been drafted into the pyramid workforce. You've left your wife, your children, your fields. You arrive at Giza. And the city around you is enormous. There are long rectangular buildings, barracks, where you'll sleep with 50 other men on low mud brick benches. No mattress. Your linen kilt is your only blanket. You wake before dawn. Every morning. Breakfast is bread. Dark, dense, gritty bread made from emmer wheat. Ground so roughly that over time it wears your teeth down to the gum. Archaeologists have found the bones of pyramid workers. The teeth are almost universally destroyed. The spines are compressed. The knees are shattered. These men were in constant, grinding pain. After bread, you drink beer. Ancient Egyptian beer wasn't like modern beer. It was thick, nutrient-dense, barely alcoholic, more like a liquid meal. You drink 4 to 5 liters a day. It was a calorie delivery system. Workers consumed an estimated 10,000 to 12,000 calories per day. We know this because of the food records found at Giza. Cattle, sheep, and goat bones by the tens of thousands. Fish. Vegetables. The pyramid workers ate better than ordinary Egyptians. The state understood something fundamental: a hungry worker is a slow worker. A fed worker moves stone. So they fed them enormously, purposefully, strategically. By midday, you're hauling a wooden sledge across dampened sand, because wet sand reduces friction, a technique they'd engineered precisely. A painting discovered in the tomb of Jehutihotep shows 172 men pulling a statue, with a man at the front pouring liquid directly onto the path. They understood physics without knowing the word for it. Your team of 20 hauls a 2.5-ton block from the delivery point to the base. You use wooden levers, rope made from papyrus, and the weight of your entire crew. Foremen count the rhythm. Everyone pulls on the same beat. If you fall out of rhythm, the block stops. If the block stops, your foreman notices. If your foreman notices too many times, there are consequences. Let's talk about what happened when things went wrong. Because they did. Regularly. The medical evidence from Giza is extraordinary. Workers' bones show healed fractures, breaks that were treated. Amputations that the patient survived. Evidence of surgeries that required skill and knowledge. The pyramid complex had a medical infrastructure. But that infrastructure also reveals the scale of the danger. Crushed feet from drop blocks. Herniated spines from constant heavy lifting. Workers who survived catastrophic injuries, recovered, and went back to work. Because you didn't just get to quit. An ancient Egyptian text called the Duties of the Vizier outlines the bureaucratic enforcement system. Work gangs were tracked. Production was monitored. If your gang fell behind, the state noticed, and state attention in ancient Egypt was not something you wanted. Foremen who failed to meet quotas were themselves punished. Beaten with wooden rods, sometimes publicly, to remind everyone watching what underperformance looked like. The system was cruel. But it was also careful. You were too valuable to destroy. The goal was maximum output, not maximum suffering. There's a cold, pragmatic logic to it that is somehow more disturbing than pure cruelty. Now compare this to other ancient civilizations building monumental structures at the same time. The Stonehenge builders in Britain, around the same era, were moving 25-ton stones roughly 150 miles using technology that remains partially mysterious. Impressive. Remarkable. But small in scale. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia, massive temple platforms built by the Sumerians and Babylonians, used genuine slave labor. Prisoners of war, debtors, conquered peoples. The structures survived. The workers didn't leave records, because their opinion didn't matter. The difference at Giza was intentional. The Egyptian state wanted the workers to feel ownership. They wanted the stories to spread. Every man who returned to his village was a living advertisement for pharaonic power. He'd worked alongside 20,000 others. He'd seen the scale. He'd eaten the beef and drunk the beer. And he'd gone home and said, "The Pharaoh fed me. The Pharaoh employed me. The Pharaoh is building something the gods themselves would admire." No other civilization in history had weaponized labor so effectively. As a propaganda tool. So here's your answer. Why were the pyramids really built? Yes, they were tombs. Khufu's burial chamber sits inside the Great Pyramid, and the ritual and religious purpose was real. The Egyptians genuinely believed the pyramid would launch the pharaoh into the afterlife, into the stars of Orion's belt, into eternity. But that was the stated purpose. The real system was something far more sophisticated. The pyramid was a nation-building machine. It absorbed surplus labor during flood season and turned it into state loyalty. It fed and housed workers at a level that created genuine gratitude. It spread ownership of a divine project across every village in Egypt. It demonstrated technological and organizational power so overwhelming that external enemies and internal rebels alike understood the same thing. This civilization cannot be stopped. The pyramid wasn't just a monument to a dead king. It was proof that Egypt was the most organized, most powerful, most divinely favored society on earth. And it worked. The Old Kingdom lasted 500 years. That isn't accidental. That's what happens when you build an empire on a foundation that every citizen helped lift into the sky. This was not random. This was not brute force. This was not slavery. This was a system. Here's what I want you to think about. If a government today tried to use a massive public works project to build national unity, loyalty, and psychological control, fed workers, gave them pride, spread ownership of the project across an entire population, would that be genius? Or would it be manipulation? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to read every single one. And if you want to go deeper, next time, we're going inside the pyramid itself. The hidden shafts that point to specific stars. The chambers that shouldn't exist. The passages that have never been fully explored. Because there are rooms in the Great Pyramid that no human being has entered in 4,500 years. And we're about to find out what's in them.